So there is this really quiet transfer of global power happening right now. And the crazy thing is it isn't taking place in some massive multi-trillion-dollar server farm out in the desert.
Right, yeah.
It's actually happening right on the dusty, mid-range desktop computer sitting in your home office.
Which, I mean, that completely upends the entire narrative we've been fed for, what, the last few years?
Oh, absolutely.
We've just been operating under this assumption that the future of computing basically required us to act as these tiny passive nerve endings. Like we're just constantly renting our intelligence from this omnipresent centralized cloud.
Okay, let's unpack this because today's deep dive is centered on this really brilliant Substack post. It came out on April 8th, 2026 by an author who goes by SpiralSeekr.
Yeah, great piece.
It's titled How Agentic AI Redefined Computing in 2026. And our mission today for you, the listener, is to really cut right through the massive noise of all this AI hype and examine this highly tangible shift. Because SpiralSeekr points out that the AI landscape has, well, it's officially bifurcated.
Yeah, it's split. While everyone has had their eyes glued to these absolute behemoth cloud models that take up, literal warehouses of space.
Right.
The most significant movement is happening elsewhere. It's what the author calls a transfer of computational sovereignty. And it is taking place locally.
Yeah.
The center of gravity has actually moved to your personal hardware.
But, let's play devil's advocate for just a second here. Because if you're running a local model, is it actually doing meaningful work? Or is this just some weekend novelty project for hardcore hardware enthusiasts?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. Because to understand why this shift is even happening, we first have to understand how it became technically possible for personal computers to even compete with those massive cloud networks in the first place.
Right. Well, the engineering focus of the whole industry fundamentally shifted. It moved away from just pure brute force.
Brute force meaning just making it bigger.
Exactly. For a long time, the obsession was pure parameter count. Just making the digital brain as big as possible and throwing in an unfathomable amount of text at it. And, naturally, that meant you needed a massive enterprise server to run it.
Sure.
But that era of those bloated sort of know-it-all models, that's giving way to architectural efficiency and really targeted training. So the models we have now are heavily optimized. They're basically punching far, far above their weight class.
And what really blew my mind in SpiralSeekr's post was the actual hardware threshold required to run them now.
It's wild.
It is, because we aren't talking about needing to go out and buy some $3,000 flagship GPU.
Yeah.
The 2026 sweet spot that the source identifies is just incredibly accessible.
Yeah, you really don't need a supercomputer anymore.
You don't. You can pull this off with just 8 GBs of VRAM and 32 GB of 3000 megahertz DDR4 system RAM. That is literally a mid-range gaming PC from several years ago.
Yeah, the barrier to entry hasn't just been lowered here, it is shattered entirely. And the mechanism driving all that accessibility is advanced quantization.
Specifically formats like GGUF.
So let's break down how that actually works for a second, because it's not just, a simple file compression like zipping a folder. Right?
No, far from it. It's, think of a model's neural weights as these highly complex mathematical coordinates.
Okay.
Quantization works by taking those hyper-precise 16-bit decimal numbers and systematically rounding them down, just compressing them into smaller 4-bit integers.
Got it.
It's kind of analogous to translating a highly dense, super academic textbook into just plain, everyday English.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the physical book takes up, say, half the pages, or in this case, half the RAM, but it contains the exact same usable conclusions. You definitely lose some of the microscopic fractional data, but the macro shape of the model's reasoning, that remains completely intact.
Wow. And then, so you pair that quantized model with unified memory management software, right? Things like LM Studio or Ollama.
Exactly. Those act as the engine for all this. Right, because if let's say a 14 billion parameter model is still slightly too large for your 8 gig graphics card, Ollama just automatically splits the workload.
Seamlessly.
Yeah, it offloads the heaviest transformer layers directly to your VRAM for speed, and then it seamlessly spills the rest of the model into your 32 gigs of slower DDR4 system RAM.
Which is exactly how everyday desktop computers are able to maintain an impressive 20-plus tokens per second. And that's on highly capable 7B to 14B parameter models.
That's just wild to me.
It is, but that democratization of the hardware is the bedrock of this entire shift.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot have a revolution in computational sovereignty if only the big tech corporations can actually afford the silicon.
Absolutely. But having the hardware is only half the story, though.
Oh, for sure.
Because if these optimized local models are basically just sitting there generating polite emails for you, or just summarizing text documents, like who really cares?
Right, it's just a toy at that point.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. We are looking at the transition from passive chatbots to active operators.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is that the fundamental definition of how we interact with AI has changed completely. The author really emphasizes that users are no longer just, prompting a text box and then sitting there waiting for a response.
Right.
The LLM has evolved. It's now the central reasoning node in an automated workflow. We are officially in the era of agentic AI.
And we definitely need to define the mechanics of agentic AI clearly, because this isn't just a buzzword.
No, it's a structural shift.
Yeah, it means these models operate continuously in the background. They are fully capable of chained reasoning, they can self-correct when they inevitably make a mistake, and they interact directly with their environment without you ever having to hit the enter key.
To make this really concrete, let's look at the specific use case that SpiralSeekr outlines in the post, because it just perfectly illustrates the power of local tool calling.
Yeah, let's get into it.
They detail using a framework like OpenClaw. And OpenClaw essentially acts as an interpreter. It sits between the AI model's text generation and your computer's actual operating system. You basically give a locally hosted Gemma 4 instance a set of digital hands.
Okay, so you're passing the model a structured JSON schema of the specific tools it's actually allowed to use.
Yes, exactly. So in the author's example, you set up this local Gemma 4 instance to just quietly monitor a Telegram bot. And the model uses its continuous background processing to parse the incoming commands from users in that chat.
Okay, and then based on a user's natural language request, the local model autonomously goes and writes a custom Python script.
Right.
It actually executes that script to scrape a specific external database, takes the messy HTML or the JSON data it gets back, formats it perfectly, and then pushes those results right back into the Telegram chat.
All without you doing anything. And honestly, the most vital part of this whole process is the error correction mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say the Python script fails on the first run. Maybe an external database changed its web layout overnight.
Happens all the time.
Right. Well, the Gemma 4 instance literally reads the traceback error code that's generated by your terminal.
Yeah.
It recognizes its own mistake in the syntax, rewrites the Python script to account for the new layout, and just re-executes the code.
Wow.
And it does all of this through a chained sequence of logic entirely on its own.
I think the best way to visualize this shift is to look at those old cloud chatbots as basically a massive, brilliant encyclopedia sitting on your desk.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at
Like,
it.
it's an incredible resource, sure,
Yeah.
but if you stopped flipping the pages and actively asking it questions, it just stopped working. Agentic AI, especially when it's running locally, is kind of like hiring a proactive, highly dedicated chief of staff.
Exactly.
This entity anticipates your needs, and it does the heavy data lifting while you're literally asleep.
And crucially, that chief of staff never reports back to a corporate headquarters. I mean, not a single byte of data from that entire Telegram database scraping operation ever hits an external corporate API. The model acts in the real world, sure, but its cognition lives completely within the walled garden of your hardware.
So what does this all mean? If these local AIs are operating as these autonomous chiefs of staff living right on our hard drives, it completely redefines our entire relationship with the tech giants. Does this mean the cloud is just obsolete now?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's clear that the future isn't a zero-sum game between local models and cloud models.
Okay.
Moving forward, they really won't compete at all. They're going to specialize. SpiralSeekr lays out a very clear division of labor here. The cloud will remain the domain of brute force.
The global oracles, essentially?
Exactly, the global oracles. Think about tasks that require synthesizing tens of millions of documents simultaneously, or rendering complex 3D environments in real time. And of course, training the next generation of massive foundational models.
Right, the stuff that takes buildings full of computers.
Yeah, those processes inherently require massive centralized computing power. The cloud is going to be the repository for humanity's heavy lifting.
But the local desktop takes on a completely new role in this ecosystem. It becomes your primary operating system interface for personalized, verifiable action.
Yes.
So you consult the cloud oracle for universal truths or these massive processing jobs, but you use your local model to actually manage your daily life.
Hmm.
And SpiralSeekr outlines 3 intractable advantages to this local-first approach.
Yeah, these are crucial.
And these are advantages that the cloud, just by the very laws of physics and economics, can never match. So let's break those down. First up, zero latency tool use.
Right. And this really just comes down to the literal speed of light and network architecture.
Yeah.
When you ask a cloud model to execute a command, that request has to be packaged up, sent from your computer, routed through your ISP, traveled to a server farm that could literally be continents away.
Just bouncing around the globe.
Exactly. Then it has to get processed and travel all the way back to you. Even if you're on a gigabit fiber connection, you are dealing with network latency.
Not to mention the server queue wait times, or those subscription throttles we've all experienced when a system is just overloaded on a Tuesday morning.
Oh, exactly. We've all been there.
But a local agent executes system-level commands instantly. When your local Gemma 4 model decides to execute a Python script to manage your files, it is bound only by the speed of the processor sitting inches from your keyboard.
Yep. The action happens in milliseconds.
Yeah.
And that speed is what makes continuous background operations possible in the first place. Think about it. If an agent has to wait 2 seconds for a cloud response, every single time it takes a minor step in a complex reasoning chain, the whole workflow just grinds to a complete halt. Local execution completely removes that bottleneck.
Speed definitely unlocks the capability, but the second advantage is arguably the main driver that's pushing users toward this entire movement, and that is absolute privacy.
This is the big one. We really have to look at the reality of what we are asking these agents to do now. We are asking them to analyze our personal budgets, summarize totally private medical documents, and, brainstorm unannounced business projects.
Yeah, it's our whole lives.
And when you use a cloud-based assistant for that, you are actively transmitting that highly sensitive data to a corporate server, period.
But with a sovereign local desktop, your financial records, your source code, and even what SpiralSeekr refers to as your speculative philosophical data.
I love that term.
So good. It means your random, unfiltered musings and those deeply personal journal entries. None of that ever leaves your machine. Your digital chief of staff is operating inside a vault. It physically lacks a connection to the outside world to leak that data unless you explicitly code a tool granting it permission to do so.
Right. And that absolute privacy isn't just about hiding your data. It's really about control. Well, if a tech corporation cannot see your data, they also cannot dictate how you use your intelligence, which completely solves the issue addressed in the third intractable advantage, which is immutable ownership.
Oh, right. This is where the politics of technology really come into play. Because if you rely entirely on a cloud model to run your agentic workflows, you don't actually own your intelligence. You're just renting it.
Exactly.
And the landlord can change the rules at any given moment.
History is just full of developers building these intricate workflows around an API, only to have an overnight update break their entire system.
Right.
A corporation decides to, say, update their safety guidelines, or they attempt to optimize server costs by quietly dumbing down the model in the background.
SpiralSeekr uses a very specific term for this in the post. They call it a model being lobotomized.
Yeah, that's the perfect word for it.
You wake up one morning, and the assistant you rely on suddenly refuses to execute a script because a completely benign word triggered some overly sensitive new safety filter. Or it just refuses to answer a complex coding question that it handled perfectly just 24 hours earlier.
But with immutable ownership on a local machine, that scenario is quite literally impossible. You own the neural weights. The model file sits right there on your SSD.
It's yours.
It's yours. It cannot be lobotomized. It cannot be censored. And it absolutely cannot be deprecated by an unexpected API update from some board of directors halfway across the country.
So the model you download today will be exactly as capable 10 years from now. It will run exactly the same way, evaluating logic with the exact same parameters, completely under your control. It is the ultimate expression of digital sovereignty.
You are basically reclaiming the tools of cognition. You are no longer subject to the shifting, unpredictable business models of a massive tech conglomerate.
It really is an incredibly empowering shift in the landscape. And, that brings us to the core takeaway for you today. We've dissected a lot of technical mechanisms here, from how quantization shrinks weights to fit into DDR4 RAM, to how OpenClaw parses JSON schemas to let a local model autonomously scrape a database.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. But the overarching message from SpiralSeekr's analysis is incredibly clear. The future of personal computing is not about acting as a thin client, a dummy terminal tied to a monolithic cloud intelligence.
No, the desktop computer didn't fade away like everyone predicted. It evolved into something fiercely independent. The future is about wielding a highly capable, localized, sovereign intelligence. It's an agent acting on its own silicon, actively managing your intricate workflows, and only querying the cloud when it's absolutely necessary.
And, this raises an important question, one that builds directly on the technical capabilities we've just discussed, but pushes it into completely uncharted territory.
Oh, okay, I'm ready. Let's hear it. So, the source notes that your local agent handles everything from your automated actions to processing your most private, speculative, philosophical data.
Right.
It operates continuously in the background.
Yeah.
It utilizes chained reasoning to navigate your digital life. So if this localized sovereign intelligence learns your deepest habits, understands your specific syntax, actively manages your life, and makes autonomous decisions entirely on your own silicon,
Yeah.
at what point does it stop being just an operating system and start becoming a digital proxy of your own consciousness?
Oh, wow.
Right. And if it possesses the ability to act autonomously, reading errors, executing scripts, responding to emails without your direct input, could this digital mirror theoretically continue carrying out your life's workflows,
Yeah.
interacting with the world exactly as you would long after you've stepped away from the keyboard forever?
That is a staggering thought to leave on. A literal digital ghost in the machine running your logic loops indefinitely.
Yeah.
But it's your machine. We started today talking about how we used to view the future as this giant, centralized sci-fi mainframe. But it turns out the real profound shift is happening quietly, locally, right on the desk in front of you. And it might just outlive you. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.